So, Charles Duke puts this Polaroid down in a baggie, places it on the lunar surface, which is 250 degrees Fahrenheit because it's sitting right in the sun, right out in the open sun, and yet it doesn't curl, it doesn't crinkle. I put mine in the vacuum chamber, and by the way, I did not put the heat lamp on it when I did it because that was the very first one that Scott and I did together, was put that Polaroid in that chamber. And look what happened to it. It's all warped and crinkled.
Wouldn't it be interesting if that particular photograph of the astronaut's family, allegedly on the lunar surface, was the thing that blew this whole story apart? That Polaroid image is used by many people supporting NASA's alleged ability to land humans on the lunar surface, which doesn't exist. That photograph is used as a point to demonstrate that it was real. If we can now show that a Polaroid image on the lunar surface would be destroyed by the heat, by the vacuum, and by the radiation, that photograph has to be faked. It doesn't prove that man didn't get there. That's the point. It just proves that the images that they use to support their contention that man got there is faked. So what else was faked? Was it the rocket to get there? Was it the ability of astronauts to survive the known dangers of space, let alone the launch of the rocket? It's interesting that the Saturn V rocket launched successfully every time it was used, but the SLS just about staggered off the ground after 4 attempts to launch it due to bad weather and lack of hydrogen seals on the refueling rigs. They claimed that that was a success. Well, where's the evidence from the radiation meters contained within the Orion spacecraft, strapped to the 2 crash test dummies, Helga and Zohar? Where is the information about that? Hasn't appeared yet. Why not? Is it because it would show that high levels of radiation would be dangerous to humans? I wonder. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But if it does show that, NASA, you have a problem. You can't maintain your position claiming that humans have landed on the lunar surface 50 years ago. Well, more than 50 years ago. 54 years ago.
Yes, it's getting on, and every day that they don't do anything, they're completely stagnated, is just more proof that nobody was there.
Nobody was there, as claimed. They were all in the simulation exercises. They were at Cannon Air Force Base doing their prancing about for the president, President Johnson at the time. Nixon took the plaudits for the landing. Though he wasn't present at the launch, he sent his vice president there. So if there'd been a disaster, he wouldn't have been implicated in it. It's cowardice. If they were so sure that it was going to be successful, surely the president would be present at such an auspicious moment. But no, he wasn't. He sent Spiro Agnew along. And what happened with him? He wasn't a very successful vice president, any more than Nixon was. But Nixon took the plaudits for it, spoke to the astronauts on the lunar surface, allegedly. That's not hard to arrange if you've got all the technology that is available to the security services. Of course you could get a phone call as if it was from the moon. So there's a lot of things now coming out which are becoming rather more obvious in the light of history. Now that we've examined so much of it, we've spent many years, many decades looking into this story. And the more we look, the more we found it's fabricated. It doesn't work.
So there's the Polaroid before it went in the chamber, right?
Okay, got it.
It's straight. This is after it came out of the chamber. I'm holding it with one hand, by the way. This stayed in there overnight. I mean, come on, guys. You know, and Bill says that his was just as bad. Then I find this interesting, is that when you go over to this, where's their face? Look at their faces. This is the one Bill had in his chamber, right? Where are their faces? They're gone.
color balance is gone too.
Oh, and another thing you'll notice too, you see the Polaroid, it's bubbled. Where at the very top on the right-hand side, that is all bubbled right up. It's bubbled. The Polaroid, the picture inside of this white sheet is lifted right up like a bubble. It's up like a bubble.
Charles Duke left the photograph, and this Daily Express, UK Daily Express, says that there's a hidden message in the family photo.
I think they're right there. There was a hidden message. How the hell do you put a Polaroid image on the lunar surface without damaging it?
You put it in a baggie.
Okay. Here's the Daily Express article on the hidden message in the photograph. Actually, this photograph is somewhat wrinkled.
Well, he probably got wrinkled when he put it in his spacesuit.
This thing looks like it's in a sealed baggie, and that should just pop. That's a sealed unit. You can see where the heat sealed the edges off on it, right? If that was in a vacuum, that'd just blow up like a balloon. Oh, it says on the back, he wrote, "This is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from the planet Earth who landed on the moon April 20th, 1972. He later revealed it had a hidden meaning."
Like he was never there.
Yeah.
Tell you, the more I look at that lunar surface, the more it looks like quick dry cement has been just tossed around the surface. March to the moon, all the photographs have a bluish hue to them, strange enough, until they're color corrected. Heck, I cannot color correct that blue. I cannot get it out.
March to the moon, you can see they put a nice smoothing overlay over top of everything. Some of the photos are clear, others are just wasted right out completely.
Well, if that photograph was encased in a sealed plastic bag, it would contain air. Therefore, it would float. Therefore, you would have to put a rock on it to stop it floating off. It's an idea, isn't it?
This is just this little scene that he put in from Disney. Now, just watch this. His thing is floating in front of him. And then he takes this and he pushes it all the way down. And the guy catches it. Now watch what he does. So it's weightless, right? It floats down. He's going to take it and then he tips it up to take a drink. Well, if you're in a weightless condition, nothing's going to come out.
You're right.
This is mistakes they make when they're faking stuff. Now, like that was just a simulation in itself, right? But those types of things will be in the Apollo videos. Like when they're so-called floating in space. I mean, they used a lot of stuff where they squeeze it in, right? But there's things that they could not do in a video to fake it, particularly when they're so-called on the lunar surface and the dirt's falling down. Well, it's falling at Earth's gravity speed, right?
I still don't understand this. So these guys are out on the surface. Can they actually seriously take that little straw and push it through the helmet and receive?
You open that thing up, the air is coming out. I'm sorry.
Of course it is.
How are you going to put the straw in there? What do you think is going to happen to the liquid inside when you're on the moon? How fast do you think that liquid's coming out of there?
If he has it inside of his suit, I think it will empty instantly. Well, how can it? Because wouldn't it turn to ice first? I mean, look what happens when the space shuttle flushes the toilet, the urine and water, whatever, goes out there and it's ice crystals instantly.
How would you take a container, hold on to it outside and put it through the tube on that helmet? The next version of the Artemis spacesuit, I looked it up. The supporting partners for it is a champagne company, Fisher Space Pens is there, and of course they use a movie costume designer is in there to produce the suit.
It's got to look right, hasn't it, this suit? It's got to look like what everybody thinks a spacesuit looks like.
Yeah, well, that's what the article said. It said it had to be appeasing to the eyes. Eye candy.
Yeah. Oh, just to follow up on your previous film, Robert, how many people can still name the 4 Artemis II astronauts who were announced a couple of weeks ago? Anybody name them? I mean, these are famous people. These are people who are going to be traveling where no man has traveled before. Can you name them? There's a Canadian, there's a woman, there's a black guy, and there's somebody else. I can't name them. I'd have to look it up.
But they won't be remembered. The ones that will be remembered are the ones that are going to step foot onto that surface. Those are the ones that are going to be remembered. Because they'll be the first time they've ever done it in the history of humankind.
It's going to be quite an achievement to get anybody onto the lunar surface for the first time. And if you think that people have been on the lunar surface 50 years ago, prove it. Prove they have. Not just say it. It's very easy to say it, but you need to prove it. If you're going to say that humans have landed on the lunar surface, prove it with science, with evidence, not hearsay, not prejudice.
Well, now they need the lunar gateway to get there. Well, they didn't need that 55 years ago. So
No.
what gives?
Oh, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's just going to magically appear and work if they're going to go anywhere, right? Like the lander, things like that.
Yeah, basic stuff.
So far, it's all CGI. And it does look pretty good. Soon it's going to come to a point where you're not going to be able to tell what's real and what's not. And then that's what you start getting scared.
Well, we're at that point.
Yeah, it's approaching that already. And with Chat GPT, I mean, that is scary stuff. Mark you, it doesn't do any more than just scan the internet to find the answers to the questions it's asked and then put them in an acceptable way. It's just like a giant search engine.
Just a giant parrot.
Parrot. I like that. Another parrot to add to the list.
Here's the website for Axiom. When you're 250 miles up going 17,500 miles an hour, people notice.
Really? You can see it that far?
So I come down and here are the Axiom Space partners and sponsors. And then we come down and you've got MUM, you've got Omega, you've got Laura Piano, Fisher Space Pens, Time Shifter, which is a CGI company out there. And then of course you got their catering groups out here. And you have anything that's doing the artistics, billboards, whatever, posters, right? Graphic stuff. But this one, Esther M. Marquis, and we'll open this one up and have a look. And it says, Axiom Space Partner, costume designer for critical acclaimed television show for all mankind. This is what they are. They're costume designers for TV shows, movies, whatever, right? Axiom Space believes that the design of the spacesuit is an essential part of the overall experience of space travel. That doesn't mean real experience. If you want to experience stuff, you go to Disney and experience things, right? That's an experience of space travel and aims to create a spacesuit that is both functional and visually stunning. Working closely with Axiom Space team of engineers, designers developed a cover layer for the new spacesuit in order to present Axiom Space Next Generation Extravehicular Mobility Unit while hiding the critical components and intellectual property. Well, it means you don't have to put anything in there, right? You're hiding it. Unbelievable, eh?
So they're a costume designer.
They're movie costume designers. And there's another thing I was reading on it, that they're designing new machines to sew that when they sew it, it's sealed. Well, didn't they have those before in Apollo?
Yeah, of course they did.
When they were stitching the suits up, weren't they sealed? Why did they have to come up with new ones?
The Apollo ones weren't visually exciting enough.
Eye candy.
They did, again, design those to be, this is what a spacesuit should look like. And they embedded that type of image into everybody's mind, what a spacesuit should look like. And of course, the new spacesuit is very much along the same lines. The only difference is didn't Apollo say that they needed to have a white suit to reflect the sun's energy?
Yeah, they did.
And of course, the new ones aren't.
No. Maybe the sun's energy isn't as powerful as they thought it was. The sun's energy is exactly the same as it was 55 years ago.
But this is the third generation of this suit, and it hasn't gone anywhere.
No.
They haven't tested it. The only thing they're testing is the public's response to the design of the suit. That's all they're doing. Like when we criticize it and say, oh, hey, that big waistband doesn't work because you can't have active seals in that vacuum, right? Well, they get rid of them because they listen to us. And now they gotta get rid of that motorcycle helmet and show us how to seal that down and lock it in there so that it's an actual sealed unit on the helmet. This flipping up and down, because the pressure's on the inside, it's going to blow it away from the seals, and that can't happen. The pressure has to push against the seals, as well as you need those gigantic bolts and torque them down like you do with a vacuum chamber.
Can you imagine if aircraft were built like that and the doors worked the opposite way? It'd be leaking.
Yeah, it'd be blown out of the aircraft as soon as it got high enough. Maybe they're now beginning to realize that there are major problems in space, not least of which is the vacuum.
Well, that's the boots and glove and the helmet are all three have the same problem.
Probably.
The pressure is pushing away from the seal. And yes, the door on an aircraft is a prime example why you have to have it the right direction.
Let's introduce Jack White. He's American. He's a film photo analyst. He's done a lot of work on the JFK assassination, and he turned his hand to the Apollo moon landings. And I was being interviewed on Coast to Coast about 20 years ago. Jack heard my interview, contacted me and said, I've got some information you might find interesting. I've been working on these. So I said, well, send them over, let's have a look, which he did. As a result of that, because there are over 200 images in Jack White's Apollo studies on the Owless website, as we've got here, he sent them over. I forwarded them on to David Percy, who runs the Owless website, and he got in touch with Jack and said, right, let's get them all up. So they're there for posterity. Because Jack died recently, regrettably. He'd done some very, very good work. Jack's work has influenced a lot of researchers into the Apollo fakery because he's demonstrated the fakery that exists. So approaching 20 years ago, Jack was doing it, and he was using the technology that he had available to him at the time. Photoshop was just coming in. That was 1989. That was first introduced. He was able to start examining the photographs and examining the faults, the defects in them, which he did. And he was doing it from a professional point of view. So if anybody can dispute any of the points that Jack raises, let's hear about them. Come on, you guys who are so keen on supporting NASA's narrative, let's hear it. How is he wrong? What has he said that is incorrect?
He's just showing the difference between this center photo here is one taken on Earth and the other ones are all so-called from the moon photographs, right? And he's showing the differences in how they're being reflected. Well, first of all, supposed to be gold, and you don't see any of the gold in any of these. That's one of the first things that he's pointing out. And of course, there's a hell of a lot more detail in here than there are in many of these.
Yeah, a great many more details. And it's supposed to be a reflection of the photographer taking it. That top right-hand picture, that's the famous one of Buzz Aldrin, Man on the Moon, Apollo 11, which reflects Neil Armstrong, who was taking the photograph. It's a good photograph. It's a very, very good photograph. You don't even need a caption to know what you're looking at. And that's always the sign of a good photograph, that you don't need a caption. The photograph tells you the story. We've got various other ones here. Apollo 11, various reflections.
Yeah, well, this one in particular, we've looked at before with the amount of equipment that's actually in the reflection here, and there can't be anything there. And we showed where the lander is, and there's the flag, but there shouldn't be anything else right there in that photograph. It looks like a DAC camera, actually. They put an overlay across a lot of the photographs just to smooth stuff out to get rid of detail.
Yeah, it's certainly true that NASA are starting to take a great deal of interest in what we and others examining the photographs are saying, then try to remove some of the more obvious anomalies in the photograph. But there are so many anomalies, they're going to have to go through their whole 30,000 picture record to make sure they get them all out. And they're not doing it because the guys who are working on these photographs at NASA are not skilled enough to be able to spot all the things that after 30 years we have examined and identified. I would challenge any photographer, that photograph on the right, the top right, with the Earth allegedly in the picture and the flag pointing at it, directly at it, and including, in this case, Jack Schmitt, allegedly on Apollo 17, to take that photograph without doing several attempts at it. That is the only picture, a few others around it, but to get that picture with a camera that had no viewfinder is virtually impossible. I mean, all right, come on, guys. Any photographers out there? Dave, I'm looking at you. Recreate that picture in one shot. Shadow on the ceiling detected in computer enhancement.
He's saying the ceiling's detected in there.
But of course, if you do the analysis today with modern technology and modern software, it's not going to have the same effect. That doesn't mean to say it's not real. It just means it's difficult to get the information out on a computer. But Jack has done it with the right technology and the right computers, and it's now posted for all time, so we can all see it. Jack did a great service to those of us who challenge Apollo's record.
Well, he got other people to take a look as well.
Oh, yes. And hopefully people will now look at the Owlis website and go to the Jack White photo section and have a look for themselves and see what they've got.
That's the photograph in the studio they're working in, and this is how easily you can remove those images.
Or unwanted scenes in the background.
Yes. See, like you just said, easily removes any inconvenient objects.
The study at left was posted online in 2005. In 2010, the images are no longer available on the Project Apollo Image Gallery. The best NASA source for high-resolution scans. Do you find removal of these photographs suspicious? Well, yes, they are suspicious. Because why would they be removed? What's the point of removing them?
Oh, missing from the reflections in the helmet visors of the antenna wire and the antenna mast, which is this wire right here and this mast.
There's no reflection of the antenna wire. That's odd.
Well, it has to be there. They're right there.
Yeah, it's right in front of it.
This is what he is showing. He's showing that these pieces are not there. Now, how could that possibly be? This little reflection in here on the helmet is this piece, and then it wraps all the way around.
Yep.
To the other side. There's probably more stuff missing in there, because this should be in here too.
But if the photographs have been removed, which we see at the bottom there, bottom right.
This antenna should be in there. That should be in there. That should be in there.
Yeah, of course it should, because that is a wide-angle view.
This is his shoulder and arm coming there down to his hand, that it stops there. You don't see the other arm whatsoever. So in between there, what should be in there? All of this. That should be right front and center. It should be right there. This should be there. That should be there. That fender's there. This fender is right there. Just beyond his hand. That's the fender. Why would they do that? Why would they do part of it? This has been retouched on this side. Why doesn't it show up? See, this piece in here looks like it might be somewhat retouched because there's a whole bunch of junk in here. Look at all the stuff up here. There's tons of stuff up there, right? But this isn't here. The fender's there. This box is here. That box is there.
And you'd also expect a reflection or a more definite image of the chest pack on which the camera is supposed to be mounted. Obviously on this one it's not.
It's just that little white piece just along there.
I think it should be a bit more than that, because that visor comes down.
The camera's pretty low. This box is here. But why is this removed? There can't be anything out there. Look at the top half of this helmet. Look at this stuff up here. What is going on? That should be black sky.
Yeah, of course it should.
all of this stuff in here shouldn't be there. All of this stuff. What the hell is that thing there? That's not this. It would have the arm coming up. This is completely missing, and that's completely missing in that photograph. Highly unusual, whatever's going on in here.
So NASA have got some pretty good retouching experts on hand. Jack White is saying, above is a photograph taken of Gene Cernan by fellow astronaut Jack Schmitt. Schmitt is reflected in Cernan's helmet visor. When the reflection is enlarged on the right, we see that Schmitt has no camera and is not taking a picture. It is also missing his PLSS personal life support system. Center photograph shows what he would look like with the PLSS and the camera. Oh, and by the way, life cannot be sustained on the moon without the PLSS. The photographs cannot be taken without a camera. These oddities raise the question, was this photograph taken on the moon? Answer, no. It was taken in the simulation studios.
You see, what I think they've actually caught there in the thing is somebody that might have been taking the picture in that reflection, because this image here, whoever's standing there is not wearing a spacesuit at all. It's not just the PLSS missing. There's no spacesuit there.
No, it's a good point.
Well, if you take a look at the 1960s, 70s, the guy could be wearing a hoodie, or he's just got really long hair. And of course, everybody had blue jeans and work boots, and that's what it looks like he's wearing.
Or it's a stagehand who got in the way.
Yeah, just a stagehand. This is not a spacesuit whatsoever.
No, it's a set dresser.
And because it's off to the side this way, the person taking the picture is taking from this way of being reflected. They're showing it's over there, so it's just picking up a stagehand that inadvertently is standing beside it while they were taking it.
And yet every time you see it, it looks like it's a different person that's inside of that. But one has a backpack, it looks like, and the other's saying, well, it's because he's not turned enough towards the camera. You can't see the backpack. Now, that's what the Birdie Bunch subscribed to.
Well, of course they'd say that. They have to say something to defend their position.
Yeah.
It's getting increasingly evident that their position holds no water.
But that is not even a spacesuit.
No, it's not.
Even the head looks different. Look at the helmet. Look at the gloves. Look at the boots. For crying out loud.
Here's the original photograph. I got the same as Jack's got right there. No astronaut can put their hands down like that in any photograph. You never see them do that.
They haven't even got pockets to put them in.
It looks like he's carrying something, though. See?
But he hasn't got a backpack. You'd see it at that angle.
Sure you would. Absolutely.
I mean, that's 45 degrees to the astronaut, or whoever it is, the stagehand. If he had a backpack, if he had a PLSS, portable life support system, which you need on the moon, by the way, otherwise you die.
What is he carrying?
It's probably a box of tools.
It almost looks like it's a pump, a vacuum pump. And by the way, the PLSS sticks out quite a way too. It's not just a shallow object. It's not shallow.
10 inches.
Which is what Jack shows in the pictures he produces. He shows how big the PLSS is. And it is quite large. It's quite bulky.
Yeah.
And it would be obvious in a photograph from that angle. So to say that he's not turned enough is just ridiculous. It's a desperate attempt to try to explain a photograph which is fake, 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 fake.